Yo, peace and love to everyone. Welcome to the Spears and Mike's podcast. Um, I'm brother Watt Slice. We have Zulu King Just P. We have Zulu King L1. We have Zulu King Razor, and we have a special guest, Zulu King Fats. Um, First and foremost, I hope everyone is doing well. And we would like to send a condolences because of our first episode at the end. We sent our well wishes to Fox Boogie out of the Bronx from the legendary MOP, and we learned shortly after that she actually passed away. So we want to send condolences to her family and everyone that loved her. And L1 mentioned before that she actually was the first female Shaka Zulu under Zulu King Shaka B.O. So we just want to do that first and foremost. Um, Anybody have anything to say before I continue?
No, just rest in peace to the sister. I seen her in some couple of photos with some Shaka Zulus, and there isn't that many people that's around from that era right now since B.O. passed. A lot of Shaka Zulus kind of like not disappeared, but they just not around like they used to be. A sister that helped one of the great hip hop duos. MOP to me is one of the best, one of the greatest duos, along with Smith and Wesson and some of the other groups, like Mobb Deep. So she helped make them successful, and that's our Zulu system. We're gonna give love and honor and keep her name alive.
Rising,
Yes, peace.
rising power to the ancestors.
Definitely. Um, so as a lot of us true hip hop heads may know, there's been a lot of controversy since the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Um, we have an individual by the name of Tariq Nasheed. For anyone who's not familiar, he's a film producer, activist, and content creator. He's known for Hidden Colors, which is dope. I suggest if you never saw it, you need to go see it. It's very dope, very informative. He also did a movie about the Haiti being Haitian independence. That's very dope too. But he has this organization called F.B.A, Foundational Black Americans. It's anyone who has ancestry here. I think it's the first three generations, if I'm not mistaken. And he actually came out with a documentary called Microphone Check, where he did some research. He's interviewed people, and he's saying that F.B.A, Foundational Black Americans, started hip hop and not the forefathers that everyone is used to hearing, like the Africa Bambatas, the Cool Hercs, and the Grandmaster Flashes. Um, how do y'all feel about that?
Well, me personally, I was first torn whether I even wanted to watch it, but as a hip hop historian, I have to, so I'll be watching it. Um, Personally, for me, uh, I'm finishing up another book, and one of the chapters, but it's a book of misconceptions in hip hop, and one of the chapters is tackling this issue. One of the essays, and I started it by saying, as long as when I was in the Zulu Nation, it was always blacks and Puerto Ricans and blacks pioneered, Puerto Ricans and blacks pioneered. So, um, and of course, a lot of people at my job have kind of been, this has been a big topic. All right, after this 50 years, people who are not really in the hip hop culture like we are asking me questions. They know, what's going, they know where I come from with it. And I was telling them, first of all, what Hidden Colors, no, I didn't, but however, I did not know Tariq Nasheed to be a hip hop historian per se. I didn't know he was this passionate about it until this, kind of came into play. Um, and I just feel like he's to me another person who's not necessarily a part of the inner workings of the culture. Those of us who study culture, live the culture. To me, I can still consider him somewhat of an outsider on the topic of what it is.
Right. What's his background? What's his background on the culture? We don't know it.
Plenty talked to, and I was telling people before, he talks big about being hip hop and loving hip hop. Has he ever been to a battle, a b-boy battle?
Right.
That's one of the most diverse events you'll ever see in the world is a b-boy battle. It's
Right.
everybody's there. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I tell people all the time, I tell people, has Tariq Nasheed and them, or even Lord Jamal, bless his heart, that's my dude. I was raised in the knowledge under that generation of Lord Jamal, but at the same time, I'm like, really, what's really good. We know the story. We know it's really good. So, I want to give everybody else a
Right.
chance to build on that. But that's personally my take. I feel like Tariq, no disrespect as an outsider, also in Hidden Colors, he taught us that we were the same people in the Western Hemisphere before colonialization. So how do you go from teaching me that to being like this with hip hop? So I'm gonna
Right.
see if anybody else got anything to add on.
Right. I want to say what I want to say is exactly like what are your credentials in the culture? What and I don't want to just talk about your appreciation for rap music because damn near the whole entire globe, black, brown, red, yellow, white, love hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like they love the rap element of hip hop, the MCing, right? But like you, that's a great point. Have you been to a b-boy battle? Have you been to a DJ battle? Because these events be having black, brown, red, yellow, white people, and you know what? A lot of times, I mean, every hip hop joint that I've ever been to, right? And I've been Zulu almost 30 years. We ain't never judged somebody based on the hue or their complexion. We judge somebody on their skills and their contribution to the culture. So I never looked at somebody and said, "Yeah, he's an MC, but he's white. Um, he would be doper if he was brown or black or whatever." I would say, "Nah, he's a dope MC. Period. If he's true to the culture, I'm gonna give him his just due." So I'm for unity as a Zulu, right? We know this is a culture that we created, and specifically, the original man, right, created this. And I seen a brother from the 5% where he said, a brother from the 5% Nation of Gods and Earth said, we don't separate the seeds. So this dispute and this lane where people are saying, uh, you know, the black man created it. Well, we know that the Puerto Rican man is also black. He's a part of the Asiatic. He is a part of the being the original man, right? So I don't know where we're going with this, right? We were unified on this front. We have all this information and historical matter that Herc is the father, Bambaataa the godfather, and Grandmaster Flash, they formed the Trinity together. And then we have other brothers like Disco King Mario, DJ Flowers, and other pioneers that also heavily contributed to the beginning of this. And now we're talking about Pigmeat Markham because he was rapping or something similar to that, that he's now, I guess, what is he the new godfather of hip hop? I'm
He's like
kind
the
of
first
lost.
MC. He's like the
Is
first
he the first
MC.
MC? Well, I've never seen a mural of him in North Carolina or wherever he's from. I've never seen a mural of him in the Bronx where hip hop originated from. And on the contrary, I've seen dozens upon dozens in the many years that I've been in New York City, dozens of murals of Cool Herc. I mean, Cool Herc lives on Sedgwick and Cedar, right on Sedgwick Ave, where it's called Hip Hop Boulevard. You know what I'm saying? So we know this is the source of the culture. So we got to challenge anybody that goes against what the pioneers are saying. The pioneers were there, not a brother that's from Detroit, respectfully.
The
You know
thing
what I
is,
mean?
Right.
the thing is, my bad. What I find interesting is that I didn't know he like his organization is the Foundational Black American, which I didn't even know was a thing,
I didn't
and
know
I
either,
didn't
though.
also know like even the term. You know what I'm saying was a thing, but the idea and theory of it is definitely a thing. So if he comes from that like perspective, like one, like it's interesting you said that he was talking about proving that everybody was like connected somehow. I think back in like the motherland or something like that, which I don't know if that. I mean, it could be, but I do differentiate in my mind. To me, the American slavery, Harriet Tubman type of dude, or Black American, than the migrant or the immigrant, like the Jamaicans or the Haitians, like somewhere where they'd be like my country, and then where I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? My country is Huntington, Long Island, so that's America. You know what I'm saying? So I've always felt that distinction, like growing up, long before it was like now, where it's an acronym and all that, and an organization. So I think which is crazy that he looks at hip hop from that way, because like Pygmy Markham and Cab Calloway, or the Jamaicans that were chatting back in whatever, that could be like argued that it was, you know what I'm saying? But it's really Bam, Herc, and
But what was
Flash,
it
right?
called though?
It
That's
wasn't
my thing.
exactly
What
that.
was
That's
it
the thing,
called? Like
right? It
Pigmeat
was hip
Markham died
hop.
in the Bronx.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
He
not
died in the
arguing
Bronx.
that. What I'm saying is that that could be argued, but the facts
Right.
is Bam is the one
So
that coined the phrase, or something like that. He's the
I
master of
heard
the
someone else.
records. You know, someone else? I don't know. It's either Bam or
Cowboy is
Busy
the
B.
one who Cowboy
Cowboy.
is the
One
one
of them.
who
You know what
said
I'm
it,
saying?
and Bam coined the phrase.
Right, right, right. And
That
Yeah,
he's
I
that's
like the
think,
that's the
master.
story.
The thing
and I
with
believe
Bam
the
is,
phrase. Sorry.
go ahead.
Now I was gonna say I believe the phrase was coined maybe a year or two later.
Right, right, right. But that's still Bronx, fucking Lance Taylor, and you know what I'm saying? That's Bam, who had the
Got
hundreds
you.
of records. That was like his thing. He had the records. Herc had the system or whatever, and Flash is the technical. You know what I'm saying? He's the one that invented the scratch. But the crazy thing to me is, two of them is from the islands. Bam could be argued. He's Bayesian, but you don't know if his mom's or
I
his
think he's
mom's
half
mom.
Jamaican though too.
You know
I
what I'm
think he's
saying?
half
So there
Jamaican,
you go.
half.
And then Herc is
Hold on.
guaranteed.
Flash invented the scratch, or Grand Wizard
Yeah,
Theodore invented the
Grand
scratch?
Wizard Theodore
Oh,
Grand
invented the
Grant
Wizard
was a
scratch.
Theodore
theater.
invented the
So
scratch. Right,
so what
right,
was
I
Flash
think
doing?
Flash created the mixer or the
Oh,
crossfader
so
or
he
right.
did
something
he
like
did
that.
something
Yeah, he did
technical.
the
You know what I'm
Yes,
crossfader.
saying?
Right.
That's incorrect. That's incorrect.
that's incorrect.
Yeah, it's not the crossfader. The crossfader was already invented.
Okay.
DJ D from the Black Spades, he showed us the GLI 3800 mixer in a
Ah,
boat
see?
in 71, 72, and it had a crossfader. So here's the discrepancy. This KRS-One here got everybody mixed up with this. Okay, KRS-One said that he invented the crossfader. That's not what happened. What happened was Flash went to a radio station on a field trip with his school. You know, he was the electrician. He was electrical genius. He went to a field trip to a radio station. The radio dude had a
Mm,
cue. So Flash was like, wait a minute, you can hear that before you play it? He was like, yeah, it's called a cue.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Flash went back and created a cue for his mixer. Cues were on mixers already. He
Mm,
created one. His didn't have one, but because of his electrical genius, he was able
mm,
to put one on his mixer. So he already had a crossfader.
mm.
Crossfaders were already in. It's the cue that we're talking about in
Ah,
discussion, and
right,
he made it
right, right.
back for his mixer.
Right,
got you.
right, right.
Mm.
But
So
that's the
I
technical
Appreciate
thing that.
that clarity, brother.
Okay.
For
Yeah,
real.
yeah.
No
word.
But
doubt.
that's the technical thing that makes him part of the Trinity, the triumvirate, right? But the thing is, two of them is West Indian, so it can't be foundational Black American. They're not African American or Black American or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Because it started with them debating the term African American. Because like I'm not African American, and I'm you know what I'm saying, and I'm honestly not. I wouldn't choose like that's a whole nother thing. So that's like
Right, right, right.
that's like a topic, and to me, because I don't even know what you're talking about, but it looks like that's his thing, and now he's trying to spin that with hip hop. Because the truth is, like if it almost can it is what it is. Like people were doing what black people were doing. You know what I'm saying? The Spanish people were doing what if they wanted to be hip hop, they had the slang, the term, the dress. That's all from black people. It just happens to be those top three, two out of three were West Indian. You know what I mean? There was hundreds of them that contributed little pieces, and not all of them were West Indian. A lot of them were foundational, quote unquote, African
Yeah,
Americans.
well,
You know what I mean?
Flash
But
is from Barbados as well. You bring up a very
see,
interesting
so there
point
you go.
with,
See, there you go. So
with the
I don't understand how he even can speak at all because he canceled himself out.
right. Like me personally, I don't. I say, especially with us knowing that we are all one people. I the F.B.A. thing I just found out about too with because I'm on a hip hop educational committee with Martha Diaz and we was talking about it too. I didn't know nothing about it either, like you. To me, I like being with the diaspora myself. It's just because of the history. So I don't want to separate us
Right,
in America from the rest of the diaspora because we are all
right,
one
right, right.
people. You know what I mean? So
Right.
also, but see, so DJ what smoking the Smokatrons? Okay, so Heavenly Pooh hit up in our meeting and she talked about DJ Smoke and the Smokatrons, right? Now check this out. He's not been mentioned either. He should also be mentioned, right? So Rich Knight said that the original trilogy is not Herc Bam and Flash, it's
Mm,
Herc Mario and DJ Smoke and the Smokatron. Now
mm,
check out what Smoke his name. His first name is Dominguez. So what does that mean? You
mm,
see what I'm saying?
mm.
See, that's
Yeah,
also
so-called
now
Latinos
right,
Exactly.
and that's
So
also now foundational American. But
who
like that's
who
a whole separate thing that Black people have to
right,
fizz on
that who
their
Tariq
own.
Nasheed is debating, well, saying that Puerto Ricans and Dominicans were not there, which is impossible. And
Yeah, it's
you know,
impossible.
we're gonna segue into the gang culture and you know and how that really catapulted hip hop because
I was
if it
listening.
wasn't for them,
Right,
we wouldn't have it,
right,
and that's just a fact.
definitely.
And he don't know that because you know, not for nothing, not to disrespect him, he's a former pimp. He was pimping in Detroit, Michigan. So
Right.
you don't know nothing
Exactly.
about what was going on, you know, in
Right.
our city. Just like we didn't know what was going on in your city.
exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes people got to stay in their lane. If a pimp doesn't have a to me like hip hop don't. That's not hip hop.
Yeah, nah,
You know what I'm saying?
and in the
That ain't one
gang,
of the many. That ain't even an extended element of hip hop when you
what's
talk about
crazy is
fashion,
pimping.
beatboxing.
Pimping is the lowest member of a gang in some of in those gangs in the Midwest. The pimp is the lowest
Right,
member, lower than the street soldier.
Wow.
right.
So
There you go.
you know,
Right.
At least they
So
can get to
there you go.
backstage.
there you go. But
You
you know,
know,
not
I
to
was
disrespect
listening.
them, but
Right. No, we don't want to disrespect nobody, but come with the facts, show and prove, right?
right,
That's the era, that's the
and
culture we come from. Show and
and
prove.
and
We don't separate the seeds.
right. And we've been seeing these videos for a while now, like with the, you know, that famous 1940 black and white video of it's like a quartet, so-called F.B.A, whatever you want to call them, a quartet, and he appears to be rapping, and he actually has grills in his mouth. He has a couple of gold teeth in his mouth, and he's, you know, what appears to be rapping, but was it called hip hop? You got that stuff like with them breakdancing in these earlier videos, but was it called hip hop? You know, were you combining the emceeing, the DJing, the b-boying, and the graffiti and the knowledge all together to call it hip hop? No, that's not what that is. That's separate things going on at one time, and
Right.
it's crazy because you know I see a lot of comments. Hip hop started in the South. No disrespect to the South. My grandparents are from the South. I'm from Queens, New York. My grandparents raised me along with my mother. My grandparents raised me, so I have Southern manners and all of that. But a lot of these jazz musicians, a lot of these poets that was in the South, it's a thing called the Roaring Twenties and the Harlem Renaissance. They had to come to New York to get off, to get their talents heard because of the banning of the clubs and the alcohol. So they had to come to the Cotton Club to get busy. Langston Hughes, Cab Calloway, all these artists. Pigmeat Markham, who's the first MC, right? He the first MC. He was in the Bronx. He probably was in Harlem, you know, putting his stuff out so people could hear it, right? So what are we really talking about?
Right. Well, one of the things too, I try to tell people too is I tell people to watch those posts because there's this thing going on called the hip hop diaspora. So it's these group of people that my sister Francesca was telling me about, and they're trying to say things like, so they'll do a post and they'll have that Russian guy dancing, right? That Russian dude. Of course, the Russian move is used in breaking, no problem, no doubt. But of course, now they're trying to say that that's hip hop. And then, like I said, Callaway is hip hop, and I'm like, well, no, because hip hop started at a certain time. We have a date. Like you said, it comprises of various elements, and I don't like how that takes from the accomplishments of our ancestors. That was Lindy Hop, that was tap, that was their thing, doing their thing. Now, no, exactly, no doubt. There's definitely an influence. You definitely see the moves from back then in the moves of the '80s. You definitely see there's a metaphysical thing going on in between our ancestors and us with the dance, no question. But it is definitely two separate entities or whatever. Hip hop is what it is in the Bronx. Again, like I tell people all the time, history is important. There are certain key factors. Geography is important in history. So Bronx, that's it. That's it. Bronx. Nowhere else. You know what I mean? As far as hip hop
Mhm.
started or whatever. The time that we say hip hop started or whatever, the environment of New York is critical in describing our history. The environment, how New York, how the Bronx was, we all know that. So again, for people to try to say, because there'd be a lot of posts like that be in my feed that, okay, this is hip hop, and it'd be like some old footage. And so it's confusing again because I'm trying to teach. Excuse me, we will be teaching children through curriculum in the future. There's no room for that kind of stuff, in my personal opinion. We got to get it right and exact for the babies. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? So that's pretty much
Definitely.
what I'm on with that or whatever. But it's definitely a
You know,
lot going on. I'm glad we having this conversation. I appreciate the invite, y'all. Thank y'all very much for that.
no, we appreciate your
We
energy and your
appreciate your
wisdom.
So,
Yeah,
expertise. Absolutely.
how do you guys feel
absolutely.
about them changing the date of the anniversary or the anniversary date
I,
or the
I didn't even know they
celebration?
changed it.
What's going on? What?
Oh, well,
For what?
you're talking about November 12th, 1973 to the August
August,
thing.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so, to me, I think both dates should be recognized. You know what I mean? Like,
Agreed.
cause right, I never ever ever right. I've been going to Zulu anniversaries. I think since the 27th anniversary, right, and then if things would have continued on with the organization, we would have had the 50th anniversary, so-called 50th, right? Because even then, there's a dispute on the origin of the Universal Zulu Nation, the starting date where we was taught 1973 and it came into power either 74 or 75, but then
Right.
there's those that say that it actually started in 77 or 78 because, and I'm not going to dispute that. There's a lot of talk. Brother Raheem from the Furious Five recently touched on that on the Gangster Chronicles. A lot of people have talked about that. Charlie Rock himself from the Zulu Kings, one of the original B-boys, has also spoke about that. There is a people challenging the start date, the founding date of the Zulu Nation. But what we do know, right, is that the Black Spades were founded in 1968, I believe, if I'm correct. So to me, when I say like Zulu, to me it includes the Spades. You know what I'm saying? Because that's where we originate from, right? So we know that there was a transition period from when the Spades were in full function and full flow. And during the Vietnam War, there was a change, right? With Black Benji being killed, there was a change. There was a lot of things going on in the Bronx, right? The Bronx was burning. So if Zulu didn't start in 1973 and it started in 1975 or 76, whatever it may be, so be it. Whoever could show and prove it to be started at a later date will recognize that. But we were taught 1973, so I'm going to continue to go on from there. Um, a lot was happening during those times. So to me, it's like BAM had, they said that they were doing the hip hop anniversary from 1974. I wasn't alive back then. I don't know if they were or they're not. I've seen flyers from I think 1976 or 77 was the earliest Zulu Nation anniversary, right? It might have been the fourth or fifth anniversary and the or whatever, something along those lines. And it might have been the fourth or fifth hip hop anniversary. It was always 1 year behind, right? So if the Zulu Nation was celebrating its fifth anniversary, then hip hop was celebrating its fourth anniversary. Because we've always had that timeline. When the Zulu Nation turned 40, hip hop turned 39. But Herc has always had the 73 thing going on. It's always been Cedric and Cedar, 1973. We as Zulus always acknowledge that that park gym was the birth of hip hop to a degree. So, why not? Why we could? I think we could easily celebrate and honor both. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, Herc and Flash, they good. They were always kind of good, even though there may have been a rivalry DJ wise. You know what I mean? So, that's just my take. I'm okay with both
Well,
dates.
I know.
I ain't gonna go back and forth and dispute it.
Yeah, I know. We built. Prism said that he found a flyer that said 77 was the first anniversary. So
Right,
we're saying now that it started in 76. Jeff Chang and Can't Stop Won't Stop stressed that Bam, his cousin Solski was killed January 5th, 1975. Bam took a hiatus, according to Jeff Chang, and later that year, that summer, he started the Zulu Nation as a dance group. That's what Jeff Chang says. Rich Knight says he talked to Bam and asked Bam about the 73 thing. And Bam said, no, he said, I was thinking of the Zulu Nation in 73. Because, of course, in 73, according to my research, that's when the organization started. That's, of course, when Bam is attempting to transition the Black Spades from the gang
right,
persona into a more, organization type thing. So he starts the organization, I believe, in 73, or the Bronx River. It was either now, y'all might be able to help me with this order. It's either the Bronx River organization first. I think it's the organization, then the Bronx River organization, then the Zulu Nation.
correct, correct. Bronx River Organization comes first
Okay.
because the timeline will be Savage Seven, Black
Yep.
Spades, Bronx River Organization,
Mm-hmm.
the organization, then from the organization to the Zulu Nation, Almighty Zulu Nation,
Zulu Nation,
Universal Zulu
Universal Zulu
Nation,
Nation.
and for
Right.
us now, the Zulu Union.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
You know. So yeah, I mean that makes sense, right? The birth of something is the thought, right? The idea behind it. You know what I mean? To me, that's the birth of something. And it always in the lessons it always said, I believe 1974 or 75, it came into power. So to me, when something comes into power, I guess that's when it came and hit the streets. You know what I mean? Now, if that's a year off a year or two, so be it. To me, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, I just wasn't there, so I can't dispute it. I'm gonna listen to the brothers that were there. You know what I mean? And if it's valid and if they can show and prove with some facts, and, who are we to dispute the said date? You know what I mean? But me, I'm gonna honor November 12th, 1973, because that's what we were taught, and I'm also gonna honor um, August 1973 for Cool Herc and Cindy's Jam. You know what I mean? Shout out to Cool Herc and shout out to Cindy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I
Um,
agree with that.
I had a lot of people asking me questions about like what's a chapter, and I told them we would explain, but we would have to go back and actually explain what the Universal Zulu Nation is, how it started, and like I said earlier, the death of Black Benji is definitely pivotal in hip hop, and the actual start of the Universal Zulu Nation. So L or King Fax or whoever, if y'all want to elaborate on what you know, you can share with the listeners.
Word up. Well, as far as this is what I was explaining to people too about the Black and Puerto Rican thing in hip hop. It's best described by Black Benji, Yellow Benji. That is a perfect description of hip hop for me. So you have a yellow Benji and a black Benji who created peace, you know what I'm saying, together in New York, that was able to pave the way to make the elements. Black Benji, I consider him the first sacrificial lamb of hip hop, like one of the first, the Nipsey Hussle, if you will. You know what I mean? The one who kind of uh, and for the Ghetto Brothers to mature instead of going to war with the gangs, which is what most people would have done. That's a pivotal point. To me, that's very pivotal. Even in the Rubble Kings, where it was explained that they was about to go to war, and then Yellow Benji was like, "Well, look, Karate Charlie, let's go see Black Benji's mom. Let's go see Miss Gwendolyn, make sure she's straight." And then when Karate Charlie was like, Mama Gwendolyn, we got the army ready, she was like, "But I thought Black Benji died for peace." So that in of itself is kind of, to me, a manifest destiny of the culture of hip hop. If that doesn't happen, if they don't go talk to her, you know what I mean, we might not even be here talking about hip hop now. So that's a very significant point. December 2nd, 1971, which is when that popped off. Black Benji got killed December 8th when they did the New York Gang Peace Treaty or whatever. That's a pivotal and crucial time, and I've been using that with people lately as a catalyst as to this whole Black Puerto Rican thing in hip hop. But a black and a yellow Benji together in an organization, it doesn't get no more hip hop than that to me, as far as the
Right.
nationalities and
Absolutely.
how hip hop manifested and who
Right.
it's like. Even
Right.
when I was taught, I tell people when I was in the Zulu Nation and being taught who did what by the elements, no race did not come up. It never came up.
Oh,
Mm,
It
nope.
never came up. You know what I mean? So I didn't know, I didn't know let's say like Lee 160, like Lee 163rd, for instance. When I found out about Lee, the Bronx, when the Bronx versus Grand Rider King, I didn't know. I didn't matter. It didn't matter. That's not how I was taught. Then I find out. Then I find out who people are later, and I'm like, okay, well that's. And I can't tell the difference from when they look from where a black person and a Puerto Rican person look anyway. You know what I mean? That's why I tell people all the time. I said, a spy. People don't realize Spy is Puerto Rican. As dark skinned as Spy is from the Crazy Commanders, he's black. He's a black Puerto Rican. What are we doing? What are
right.
we talking about? You know what I mean? So I like using that. So that's kind of as far as Black Benji and his goal and his role. I really consider that the manifest destiny of the culture. Because once again,
Right.
if that doesn't happen and the Ghetto Brothers don't mature and decide to create peace instead of war, again, I feel like we're not here talking. And adding on, since we're now here, I tell people this all the time because I say the musical aspect of hip hop started in '73. The culture in of itself started with the Black Spades, you know what I mean, and the Ghetto Brothers both starting in '68. You know what I mean?
Mm,
But these organizations and gangs or whatever you want to call them, all of them had blacks and Puerto Ricans in the Black
And
Spades, and
Puerto
blacks and
Ricans,
Puerto
right?
Ricans in the Ghetto Brothers. And so this is the part Tariq Nasheed don't know about. You know what I mean?
And if you watch Rumble Kings, they had white gangs too in other
mm,
parts of the Bronx.
Yep.
mm.
They
And white
definitely did.
and white
He was
and
white
whites
black
in these
spades.
gangs too.
And white
Yep.
spades also.
Exactly, because all whites
Right,
didn't make white flight. All of them couldn't make white flight. So the ones who
right,
was still in the
right.
Bronx, they ended up
That's a
And,
fact.
I tell people that all the
and
time.
something that I also want to say is what's important to recognize with the Ghetto Brothers in particular, right, is the fact that these brothers were fed up with the conditions of their community. Like
Hmm.
they were tired of smelling the trash that was sitting in the streets, the vermin, the rats, the mice from just the trash not being picked up. Right? When these brothers started cleaning up their community, right? I saw a video with Karate Charlie, and rest in peace to Karate Charlie, because me and the brother
Allah have
Watt,
mercy on them. I
I
mean,
mean, me and Watt had the pleasure, numerous dozens of phone calls between ourselves and Karate Charlie years ago in our youth, where he used to talk to us about things, right? He used to talk to us about becoming Zulu. He became Zulu at some point. I don't know what year. He joined the Zulu Nation. The brother became Muslim. But I saw a video of Karate Charlie where he was talking about they were just fed up of seeing the junkies and the trash, and they wanted a change. They were ready to basically start the revolution. You know, them brothers wanted change. They were tired of it. And this is important because when we have communities that's dealing with self-destruction and brothers that were participating in that self-destruction have a thought in their mind that they want to change and elevate, this is what Zulu is, overcoming the negative to the positive. They may not have been Zulu, but their ideas and their ways and actions coincide with our how we move. You know what I mean? They were the definition of overcoming the negative to the positive.
absolutely.
Unfortunately, yes, like you said, facts. Like you said, King, he was a sacrificial lamb. Like the brother got killed, and it's terrible that he lost his life. Rest in peace to Black Benji. Never forgotten. And he was just immortalized with a street named after him. I didn't even know it because I
Yeah,
would have went
back
there.
in April. Back in April, absolutely.
Oh, that's dope.
You
For
know,
a lot of the listeners that don't know what we're talking about, you can go and watch Rubble Kings. It's about all the gangs in the South Bronx, and it talks about the death of Black Benji. Black Benji was a leader in the Ghetto Brothers out of the South Bronx. Um, there's a clip. They used to do this show where they interviewed gang members, right? And Black Benji was explaining to the person that interviewed him 3 weeks before his death, I believe. he was explaining how he had just got clean. He had a drug addiction. He had just got clean, and he stayed away from the Ghetto Brothers until he got himself right because he wanted peace and he wanted to teach the kids and protect his community. So he came back after he got himself together and started putting the work in as far as protecting his community, keeping the drugs out. These gangs were taking kids to school and keeping the drugs out, the drug dealers and the users. You know, when you think of gangs, a lot of media puts a negative spotlight, like we're a bunch of misfits. And I say we because we're all former gang members. So we we're portrayed as misfits, rebels without causes, you know, and they're not looking at the conditions of
Yeah.
some of us. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, these brothers were really taking care of their community. The only thing was with these gangs, they flew colors, which was at the time was a vest saying on the back or on the front, they had patches. Like if you see the Warriors movie, which is actually inspired by the death of Black Benji. The Warriors movie is inspired by the death of Black Benji. Um, they would wear their colors and going through other territories rather, they weren't allowed to wear their colors. So that's where the conflict would come. So, you know,
But the Ghetto Brothers were. Remember
the Ghetto
remember
Brothers were allowed after the Ghetto Brothers
right.
declared peace and they no longer wanted to be recognized as a gang. They were the only organization allowed to wear their colors through different territories because they were about peace and they weren't
Yeah.
about, you know, violence, and they were about protecting the community and bettering the community despite the circumstances. And
Right. I saw a video, I saw a video where Yellow Benji said if when there would be a problem, right, when they come through with their colors, right, with their cut sleeves, um, he would walk straight up to the president of that gang and let
right,
them know, nah, they're for peace.
right,
You know what I'm saying? And
right,
then they would just let them, march on with their colors. You know what I
right.
mean? And that's yeah, that's legendary if you really think about it. Um, because things were different back then. It was treacherous. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, shout out to Yellow Benji,
Black
shout out to
Benji,
Black Benji, shout out to Karate
bloody
Charlie,
so
and
absolutely.
and the hundreds of Ghetto Brothers that's probably alive right now that's forgotten about. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just not give flowers to the brothers that passed, but all of them played a role. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
none of y'all did the work in vain. You know what I'm saying? And you know what? Man, I wish they were activated right now, still moving on. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that's in New York where we dropped the ball was a lot of, because of hip hop, right? Certain movements started to die out. And I understand when people get older, they fall back. Us ourselves, right? We know what it is to have responsibilities as fathers, as husbands. So, it's a different thing. Before we was, I mean, I see y'all every day, damn near. We was,
Right.
bullshitting. You know what I mean? We was
Right.
chilling all the time, doing whatever for the organization. But now, it's different. We on father time, husband time. But, I just want to say thank you to all the Ghetto Brothers. You know what I'm saying? All the
Right.
Black Spades, all the Savage
Mm-hmm.
Nomads, all the Savage Skulls, all those legendary organizations, man, because I really wish New York had all of that right now. Tell you the truth, we would have a connection, a true rich history that's stemmed over 50 years. And I know the Black Spades is still moving. Don't get it wrong. I know the Black Spades. I'm gonna tell you like this. I'll be honest. The Black Spades, to me, is stronger than the Universal Zulu Nation right now in 2024. They're together. They're active. They're unified. You know what I'm saying?
And they're
And they're
protecting their community too.
and they're
I
protecting the
believe that.
community. You know what I
They're
mean?
protecting their community.
Whereas,
That
the reality of it is, due to the circumstances, the Zulu Nation is not what it once was. You know what I mean? Hence the reason why, the Zulu Union is striving and looking to build. But, respectfully, we're all still here. We're all striving. You know what I mean? And, it's a legacy that shouldn't be broken, man. We got to keep pushing this. The true Zulus, whether it's Universal Zulu Nation, whether it's Zulu Union, Almighty Zulu Nation, whatever you want to call it, we have to keep this the legacy, the story intact, and keep on pushing forward towards positivity. That's the way we have to do it.
I hear. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, we hear you.
the screen is froze.
Agree. I agree. Um, I was watching a portion of Rubble Kings, and um, I was reading the comments on YouTube, and someone said, like, if these young gang members had respected their politics like these brothers were when they were teenagers back in the late 60s, mid 60s, early 70s, like, it wouldn't be like this. For the Ghetto Brothers to be able to walk through. And so let's backtrack a little bit because I want to explain to the listeners how a fight broke out, which resulted in the death of Black Benji trying to break up a fight. And, whatever, I'm not going to say the gang because there's like different stories behind which gang was responsible, but he was unfortunately beat with a lead pipe that led to his death. Um, they had a gang meeting, which is now known as the Peace Treaty on Hoe Avenue, Peace Treaty of Hoe Avenue, where all the gangs met. And the actual footage is available on YouTube for those that want to watch the Peace Treaty, where they actually told the police, they told NYPD to leave or they would discuss nothing. So NYPD left. The meeting started off a little aggressive with a lot of finger pointing and blaming, but ultimately they signed a peace treaty. They agreed on a peace treaty. So this allowed all the gangs to frequent each other's territories without issue, right? And had that not have happened, in my opinion, we wouldn't have hip hop because a lot of these gang members were DJs and they were spinning in different projects or having the park jams as they used to call them. And if that peace treaty wouldn't have happened, they wouldn't be allowed to do that. And I think the hip hop starting the way it did, it wouldn't have happened unless they had that peace treaty. How do y'all feel about that? Hmm.
Crazy.
That's yeah, that's
It's
real
crazy.
crazy.